Hello everyone and welcome, Spencer here, and today I want to talk to you about interaction. And this is not just play more interaction, play more removal, that's why you're losing games, because we've all heard the argument of play more removal, and some of us do need to play more removal, some of us need to play less removal, but I want to talk about interaction in general. So, ways in which we interact with our opponents. Now, yes, this can be done through instant speed removal spells, through counter spells, things like that, but it also can be done in responses to things. And why I think this is important is because I think a lot of the times, especially in more casual pods, it can be the key to winning or not winning, or even if you lose, still having impact and meaning in that game. So I've grabbed a couple of decks, different themes. Obviously I've got my CDH deck out here, Tivit, because if you're not aware of the CDH format, the competitive format of Elder Dragon Highlander, it's a hell of a lot more interactive. It cares greatly about what your opponents are doing and stopping them from winning the game, so you can try and win on your turn and protecting your win. Yes, it's expensive in the sense of they use a lot of older cards, so it's more expensive. A lot of the 0 mana cards, which are more expensive because they are classed as, the best type thing. But yeah, it's just, it's a good one to show you, and then also show you different versions of how that can be achieved within budget decks. I've got a Voltron deck here, and then I've got like a mono blue like spells deck. So I'll show you what I mean in the CDH stuff first, and then we'll see how it comes down. So it doesn't matter about the commander. I just want to go through just a couple of cards at the front I've got set out here, just to show you what I mean, or what I believe is in forms of interaction that are good and makes a big difference in games and moving forward in games, and accomplishing something within those games. Like, we've all had the games as well where we've flooded with lands and got a couple of artifacts out and don't feel like we've had an impact. So I'm here now to say, maybe look at those artifacts that you've got, look at things and adjust your card and assess what is a good and bad card, because I don't believe that there are, well, I do believe that there are bad cards, but I think some cards get slammed as bad because they are not the most optimum and are essentially seen in like CDH formats or something like that, or seen in the higher end power levels of like the big fancy Atraxa decks, and they're just classed as bad cards. And actually in the right decks they can be pretty damn strong. So I believe there is a card in most, a card that has a space in most decks or in some specific decks, and so you don't write every card off, okay? So Ranger Captive Eos, if you're not aware of this one, it enters the battlefield, you tutor, yeah? It then has an ability to sacrifice it and your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. It's very much like Silence and any of the Stax effects. So the reason why Stax effects are so strong is because they stop you interacting. And if they stop you interacting, it's allowing that person to win or put themselves in a serious advantageous position. So the fact that these cards exist, yeah, Stax pieces, silencers, anything that turns off interacting with your opponents or turns you off from interacting with your opponents, they are seen as so strong because it stops you from interacting with them and stopping them from potentially getting a win. Okay, so that in itself should highlight, oh, interaction is really, really, really good, and I should be making sure that at least most of my cards in my deck have some solid form of interaction in some way. Okay, so Esper Sentinel is just your classic like heuristic study or your Mystic Remora. When your opponent does something, you get something, yeah? So it's interacting with your opponent through a passive ability. That's a static ability. When you play it, it goes onto the battlefield, your opponent does something, you get something in return, yeah? It's a form of interaction. Are you going to pay the one? Are you going to pay the one? Yeah? You are interacting with your opponents. Yes, some people find these cards annoying because you're always asking, are you paying the 1? But you can always start that conversation with, I'm going to assume you're not paying the 1 and I'm always going to draw unless you tell me you're paying, okay? And then you wait till they resolve the spell and then you draw your card. If they resolve the spell and say, and I'm paying, you don't draw your card. Yeah, you can shortcut things. So it's what we're good at as human beings. So, yeah, interaction. It's not a counter spell, it's not a destruction spell, but it's interacting with your opponents and what your opponents are doing. Same with Talion. Whenever opponent casts a spell, yeah, then if it triggers Talion from the number you've chosen, you do something, yeah. That player loses life, you draw a card. It's interacting with them. It's making them think about their actions and what they want to do. Opposition agent, like they want to draw a tutor for a card. You're interacting with that moment. That moment that they want to do, you're going to interact with it. Ledger Shredder. Whenever they cast their second spell, this connives. Yeah? It helps you get through your deck. It triggers when opponents do something. Sorry, when players do something. So this even triggers for yourself. Yeah? So there's always value to be gained from this. Yeah? It gets itself bigger with more +1/+1 counters, gives it more impact, interaction, great. Same with Fairy of Mastermind. An opponent draws the second card each time, you get to draw a card. And you can then also 4 mana, and then you can activate this. There's no tap-in, so it's not like once. If you're playing casual format and you've got a load of mana, you can do this a few times, yeah? Okay? Fierce Guardianship. Free counter spells. These are so good and so prevalent in CDH because they allow you to interact after you've spent all of your mana interacting. Yeah? Okay. Right. There's nothing else here I really want to talk about on this depth of level, but that's just to show you that these are all forms of interactions, yeah? From your counter spells, to reacting to when people draw cards, to forcing them to draw cards so you draw more cards, to interacting with their tutors, when they cast certain spells of certain types, any spells, and the power of silencing those people, or people silencing you. Okay, now all these touch points and interactions, they are not limited to creatures, instants and sorceries. Okay, they're on lands, they're on artifacts, they're on enchantments. Yeah, so Voltron deck. Sir Gwyn, right. 3 lands here to start us off with. Yeah, Castle Lochwain came out in Eldraine a couple of years back. Draw a card, you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. If you're towards the end of the game and you've got 1 card, 2 cards in hand, boom, you can start drawing some extra cards. Use that life as a resource. Interact. Your opponent casts something scary, tap this, activate it, draw that card, see if you can interact. Did you draw the removal spell to be able to deal with that? Yeah? So Gwyn is a Voltron deck. Yeah? Lands with effects like this. 1 mana, target legendary creature gains fear until end of turn. I think when this was reprinted it was like 15 quid, I got it in the pre-con. So they can be expensive, but they are good. You now have an ability on a land to then activate, to then allow your commander to get through for that damage. You're not relying on an instant spell to destroy their blockers, or giving the commander some way to make them unblockable, or protection from creatures. You're doing that through a very simple land, which you're going to play on turn anyway. Right? Axgard Armory. Yeah, 4 mana, quite pricey, but tap, sacrifice this, and then search for an equipment. So you can search for that solution that you want. On a land, you're going to play this land anyway. It's tapping for mana until you need that in that special moment. Somebody goes to play a board wipe, boom, let's go and get our indestructible piece of equipment. If we've got somewhere flashing that out, we can get it attached. Yeah? So it allows you to set up for those future turns, those points in which opponents are trying to do something and you can foresee, and you foretell, to use a magic word, that what is going to happen, and like, oh, they're about to get like a big indestructible guy, I need to make sure mine's big indestructible as well. I know my Sir Gwyn deck, so I know that I could potentially go and get Sunforger, and then so the next turn I can put Sunforger on, and then I can use that Sunforger to then go and get more spells, more points of interactions. Yeah? Same here as the land, Stonehewer Giant, tap it, search. So as long as I've got Summoning Sick, tap it, search, go get what you need. So you can respond to when people are doing stuff. Yeah, Mother of Ruins. Someone goes to destroy your creature with a black spell. Tap, give your creature protection from black. Yeah, Sunforger, like I just spoke about, allows you to go and get more and more instants and sorceries that meet the requirements. Yeah, more touch points, more points in which you can go, opponent's doing this, I have things on my board in which I can interact with. In response, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Okay? Once again, Conqueror's Flail, same as Silence or things. This stops your opponents from interacting with you. So strong, because it stops them interacting. It shuts down 3 other opponents. These effects are massive because it stops you from interacting. Please interact with your opponents. Interacting with people is not a bad thing. Another great one is Shadow Spear. Stuff like this, I think, is underutilized. Use this as a political card. If somebody's played a god that's indestructible, something like that, bam, I can turn that off if you can destroy it. Yeah, I'll activate my Shadow Spear if you can then destroy their thing. Can you exile it? Yeah, great. Okay, let's work together. We're not just responding to somebody else's threat, we're now interacting with another opponent through political play. Yeah, these little moments all add up. All add up. Yeah, and that's a Voltron deck. Okay, and that's not going in, obviously there's a bunch of removal spell, instant speed removals, there's board wipes. They're all other forms of interaction and removal and stuff like that in the deck. But there's also trying to prove that interaction is not just stopping somebody, like you mostly see at EDH, or responding to people doing lots of stuff, then you get a benefit from it. It's also being proactive about, oh, I see somebody doing something on their end step, I'm going to do a tutor to get something to progress my board state to make sure I'm more impactful in this game and don't lose the game going forward. We have the same with Gadwick, my mono blue deck. Yeah, this, I think I've showed this deck before on the channel. It's basically, it's do nothing until it wins the game. So it's just a lot of draw spells, scry spells, and then bounce spells to bounce my opponent's stuff back to hand. Yeah, and if it's big and scary, I'll counter it on the way back down. So that's my interaction for the most part. Bounce that, return it to your hand, bounce all your non-land permanents to your hand, or when you go to play the big scary thing, I'll counter it on the way back down so you no longer have it. Yeah, so that's how this deck works. So Gadwick, don't need to worry about him. Interaction, removal, just straight up removal. We've got Pongify, we've got Rapidization, all stuff like that. Now, artifacts. Artifacts are such a great point for interaction within the game of Magic the Gathering. I just find so many people overlook things like Mind Stone and Commander Sphere. They draw you cards, people. They draw you cards. Yeah, they help you find those answers. They help you stay relevant in the game. Yeah, 1 mana tap, sacrifice this, draw a card. Yeah, do this on somebody's end step before your turn. Do this in response to somebody playing a big spell to see if you can find that counter spell. See if you can find that point of interaction. Same with Commander Sphere. Commander Sphere is great. Like, yes, it's 3 mana. But you tap it, you float a mana, and then you sacrifice it in response. And now you've got a mana available to use that card with. Yeah? I know I'm in a mono blue deck. I can tap this, add blue. Yeah? Sacrifice it, draw a card. Maybe I get an offer you can't refuse. Yeah? I can then essentially cast that for free from 1 artifact. Yeah? Maybe it's not a 1 mana counter spell. Maybe it's a 2 mana counter spell. If I've got land still available, then I can do that. Yeah? These are just great points, great points. Another great way of giving yourself more points or more chances at interacting. Flash speed. Yeah? You may cast spells as though they had flash. Or your sorceries now have flash. Yeah? Everything. Or your creatures, or your enchantments, or your artifacts. You can get them all out on the battlefield at instant speed. And the bonus of that is that you can respond then to what your opponents are doing. You can interact more. Yeah? Interact doesn't necessarily always mean destroy their thing. Yeah? Get rid of their stuff. Counter their spell. Yeah? If you've got, I don't know, an Altar of Dementia or Ashnod's Altar or something like that, and somebody's going to board wipe, guaranteed that player who has got that artifact on board is going to sacrifice their stuff to generate value. Yeah? So it's all about what the game is about. It's generating value for yourself and interacting and responding. There is a reason why we have a priority system in Magic the Gathering, you know? It's to give you those opportunities to interact, alright? So remember when somebody's taken their turn, untap, then you go to move to their upkeep, you can respond. Yeah? They go out of their upkeep, they go to move to their draw, you can respond. They go to move to their main phase, you can respond. Yeah? They play a land, you can't respond. They cast a spell, you can respond. An ability or a trigger goes onto the stack, you can respond. They go to move combat, you can respond as they go to move to combat before they've even declared attackers. Yeah? These are all massive, massive touch points in Commander. Or just in the game of Magic in general. And it's just, maybe it's just my pods and stuff that I play in, but I feel like it's wider than that. I feel like it's just the casual mentality is that we don't look at it on that level because it feels too much. It feels like we might be going more down this route, but that can be done with the budget cards. You know, we have great removal spells like Beast Within and what's the white ones? There's the new Stroke of Midnight and Generous Gift and stuff like that. Yes, they are 3 mana, so it means leaving more mana up on your turn. But if you can start to understand the board state and, it's turn 5, I know my opponent's likely to play a big thing or something impactful, you know, or just their commander, you know, you can see what mana values everyone's commanders are. So you more than likely know when they're coming down because you see the ramp come into play, and then you know the commander mana value, so you know when that's going to come out. You could save your removal spells and time them specifically for those commanders. Most people's decks are built around their commanders. Yeah? If you kill that commander, it's going to put you in a strong position. Okay? There's a couple of other ones I want to mention. Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay green. If you do, draw a card. Great in mono green decks. I don't see this card enough. It could be that my pod just doesn't play it, or my LGSs that I go to, I don't see it very often because not a lot of people play big mono green stuff. But it's absolutely amazing. Mono green, you've got loads of mana. You're ramping to the hills. Yeah? You should have this in most of your mono green decks. Yeah? Put it in your mono green deck. Whenever you cast a creature, which you're going to be doing in green, you can then draw a card for 1 mana. Yeah? You're doing the thing you're normally doing, you're drawing a card. Then take into account, maybe you've got something like Vivian, so you can play creatures at flash speed. Oh, somebody's about to board wipe. Okay, I'll flash out this mana dork, I don't care about it, it's not really going to help me. And I'll draw a card, and then we'll see what I've got. Did I get my heroic intervention? Can I save myself? Yes, I did. Amazing. Yeah? If not, don't worry about it. You could also, if you've got a load of green mana available, creatures on the board, you've not got no good attacks, so you pass the turn and you don't want to overcommit, yeah? But you can dump creatures at flash speed, you know, you have an emergent zone, or you have a Vivian, like I said, dump a load of creatures at flash speed, draw a bunch of cards before your next turn on somebody else's end step. You've now just pseudo-hasted your creatures because they've come on untap on your turn and they've no longer got summoning sick, and you've drawn a bunch of cards to set yourself up to hopefully get those removal spells or fight spells or bite spells to get through to do that damage. You know, don't sleep on this. Great. Also, don't sleep on Emergent Zone, like, fantastic card. Liquid Metal Talk. Target non-land permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Tap. Target non-land permanent. Not yours. Any non-land permanent. On the battlefield. Yours or your opponent's. Yeah? So many removal spells that say target artifact. You know, they got that pesky creature, they've got that commander you can't get rid of. But it's now an artifact, I can now target it. Yeah? Liquid Metal Talk. Underutilized, in my opinion. Underutilized. Yeah? There's also a bunch of steal spells. So if you're wanting to play decks where you steal opponent's stuff, yeah? There's a bunch of steal spells that target artifacts. Absolutely great card. Fantastic. Use it in more decks. Yeah. Other honourable mentions I can think of off the top of my head is Merfolk. So many Merfolk decks play with untappers. So Seedborn Muse, the Merc Fiend, So they untap all your creatures, and you can tap all your creatures to draw cards to keep you into the game. Once again, you're responding when you get to somebody's end step. You're responding when somebody casts something. You're interacting with your opponents. Yeah, I think I've made the point enough. Like, it's just having these cards and these moments where you can just do something in response to, and you will feel, if you have those moments, that you are making more of an impact in the game. Yeah, and not only will you feel that, but you will have more of an impact in the game, because somebody's going to do something and you're saying, oh, in response I'm going to do this. Oh, that's changed what they're going to do. Okay, that's good. Yeah, you're keeping people on their toes, you're staying in control without having to play a control deck. You're just playing more interaction, and you're using the priority system and the passing through phases, and to use those touch points to be able to interact. So yeah, just quick splurge thoughts about interaction and how we should be playing more of it. And when somebody says play more removal, don't think of it as, oh, more removal, just play, oh, I've got 10 single targeted removal, I've got 5 board wipes in my deck. Like, it's not necessarily maybe what they mean, because they're saying you need to interact with your opponents to stop them from doing stuff, which is done in multiple different ways. It's done by stealing their things or turning their things into artifacts, so then you can destroy them. It's making sure that you can draw more cards, or draw more cards in multiple different ways, you know? It's making sure that you stay relevant within the game. Yeah? If you, at the point in Commander when you're playing something, passing turn, playing something, pass turn, and you do that 3 or 4 turns in a row, and each of your opponent is taking 4 or 5 game actions in a turn, then you probably need to stop and relook at your deck. Yeah? If you are not taking multiple game actions in a single turn, you need to look at your deck. Yeah? So, yeah, there's not much else really to say. I do have a little bit of something for anybody who's stuck around to the end. There you go, for your arena players out there. Enjoy. But yeah, more interaction, more touch points. Yeah, don't be shy. Interacting with people is a good thing. Yeah, I'll see you all in the next video, guys. Take it easy, stay safe out there, and bye for now.